Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. Today's episode is a very special episode. It has now been 1 year since I launched the Give a Heck podcast in November of 2020. So I wanted to share some insights and some thoughts of what I've gone through in the last year and how important podcasting has been in this journey, both as a guest and as a host of my own show. So 1 year anniversary, as I mentioned, of learning and striving and developing a brand that I ended up calling, as you know, Give a Heck. And it has morphed into so much more than I ever expected in the first starting thought processes of the development and design of the brand. So I wrote some notes here and I'm going to go through and take you on a journey of what I experienced in the creation of Give a Heck and the start of the podcast, which has done so much for me in the last year and will continue to do so much more for myself and as well as you, the listener, as I continue to invite on amazing guests that have learned in their lives to give a heck, pivot, and change their lives and use that knowledge and information to go give a heck about others and help them stop being camped in life and continue to climb. So this started in approximately 2017. I was sitting back and wondering where was my life going to go. I was kind of caught on the hamster wheel of life again. And part of that was because of the trials and tribulations I had gone through for the prior 2 years with my granddaughter being so sick. And in 2017, she passed away. So leading up to that point, I was reasonably successful in my lifestyle and financial planning business. And that changed. I camped in my mindset and I had stopped climbing and growing. And part of that was the fact of concern and worry over my granddaughter. And then when she passed away in the spring of 2017, I kind of spiraled. I didn't realize what was slowing me down, what had caused me to literally camp in all aspects of my life. Well, I had camped because of the simple fact that I was so concerned that I had given up all of my energy for the good to support my daughter and my granddaughter as they were going through the journey of her health challenges. And then, of course, the passing, helping out her dad and mom deal with the loss, right? So it was a tumultuous time in my life. And again, it caused me to mentally camp. So I was unsure how to start climbing, but I eventually just was living on the hamster wheel year in, year out. Fast forward to 2020, just before the pandemic hit, something happened for me. And why do I say it that way? Because I honestly believe things happen for us, not to us. And those things that happen for us can happen through other people. It might not always be direct, but we have to be cognizant and open to our thought processes and to whether or not we are really wanting to change. Are we with the willing? Do we want to move forward in our lives? And those are things that we can ask ourselves. We can communicate with mentors and people that are supportive in our lives. to help us level up in our mindset, to start that baby step climb instead of being camped and just going to work, go home, get paid, rinse and repeat the next day, living for the weekends, none, and so unsure about our lives. So just before the pandemic lockdown of March of 2020, I had a couple of things that life was trying to tell me that I wasn't listening to. And I was sitting on my couch and kind of feeling sorry for myself, you know, still reeling from the loss of so many good people in my life over the prior few years. My granddaughter, obviously, being the most impactful death that's ever happened to me. But nonetheless, a lot of people in my life gone. And I just was wondering to myself, like many of you might be wondering, why? Why does this happen? Where am I going to go? And I was living in a state of fear when in reality, I have taught and coached people that fear stands for face everything and rise. It is not something that should grip us. It is not something that should slow us down, but it happens. It happened to me once again. And I was fearful of passing. I was fearful of leaving my kids behind, you know, not really having worked on a legacy. I wasn't unsure of exactly what I wanted to accomplish, what I was striving to achieve. So March, just prior to that, I got a post that came up on my wall at Facebook. And I had joined a group called 365 Driven Entrepreneurs. And a post came up saying, hey, would you like to join the 365 Driven Society and be one of the founding members? And there was a cost involved. I don't know, something just said, hey, this is your ticket to changing your life, to stop being camped, to climb, to get over the 6 inches between your ears that is, you know, can be a hindrance or it can be a savior to your life. So I did that. March 1st, I started a challenge that was given to us by the the founder of 365, which is Tony Watley. And Tony challenged us and said, March 1st, I want you guys to do videos. Now listen to this. I started March 1st. I did the first video recorded, and somebody reached out to me that was part of the group that I thought was knowledgeable and said, oh, your videos have to be live. I found out 35, 45 days later, that wasn't the case. They could have all been recorded. But March 2nd, 2020, I started recording live videos. And those live videos have changed my life, and I'll explain how. As a side note, as of this recording, I have now done 604 live videos. I call it my vlog. I post about it every single day. Originally, the competition was for 30 days, and then it was 60 days, then it was 90 days, and Tony then challenged who of you can do it for 365 days. Well, out of the group of people that started with me March 1st, 2020, I'm the only one that made the year and is still, again, continuing on. And that vlog is basically taught me to be confident. It's taught me to be a better critical thinker. It's taught me to be a better listener. So what do I mean by that? Well, when I'm listening to a book, because I do that more than I actually will pick up a book and read. I listen to podcasts when I'm on Zoom calls, when I'm involved in masterminds, when I'm watching a movie, a documentary. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be a one-on-one conversation. I have become a better listener because I'm always looking for things to talk about. And that was one of the biggest things when I first started, was the fear of how am I going to come up with new topics every single day? And there's many times I've thought about quitting and decided not to, because I've been reached out to by many people that say that my vlog on the daily makes a difference in their lives. So I feel obligated to do it because I don't want to let down those that have been supporting me since March 1st, 2020. and those that have become somewhat reliant on the conversation of me discussing what is live and real that day. And it can be something that somebody's reached out and said, hey, talk about this, or it could be some, like I said, a conversation I've had with somebody, or a book that I've partially listened to, and I'm, paused it, and I'm starting to work, and I write down ideas on a journal that I started in a product called OneNote to tap into to help me with my vlog. And again, sometimes it's stuff that I wrote in that vlog a week ago. Sometimes it's something as fresh as something that's just happened in my life. And I hit the live button and I record live my thoughts on a specific topic, a specific, conversation that I heard, or a thought process, whatever the case may be. It's made a huge difference in my life and given me confidence. So back to March, through that process, Tony Watley, again, the founder of 365 Driven, became a mentor of mine. And we started bouncing ideas about the fact of what I wanted to do with my lifestyle and financial planning business. And I happened to be on a call where he was, or watching, pardon me, him record a podcast with somebody by the name of Alexander Watkins. Wrote a book called Eat My Words. And I got to ask, there was a few of us on that stayed and watched the recording. We got to have a Q&A period. And we started talking about the name of my company. And the current name of the company, she said, sucked. And when she explained why, I understood why. And she wondered why I hadn't parlayed the fact that my legal last name is Heck, H-E-C-K, just like it's spelt. And we got off the call, and within hours, Tony was sending me ideas. And we couldn't find and get the domain name for what the heck, but Give a Heck was present and available. And I didn't even hesitate. I started buying the domain name, and within weeks, I got the trade name, and I literally applied for a trademark. Probably, I'd say about 2 months in, because I got the logo designed for it, and the catchphrase that I had been using, or some people would say it's a call to action, or whatever the case may be, was helping people live life on purpose and not by accident. I've been using that for years, pretty much consistently. So I wanted to brand that to Give a Heck as well. So that happened. I applied for the trademark for the logo and the name Give a Heck. And proceeding forward from that, I got invited into a couple different online virtual seminars, because at that time everything was locked down. And through that online virtual seminar, I learned, connected with a bunch of great people. Part of that connection was, again, it was Tony invited me to come to this online seminar. And from there, I connected to Jake Ballantyne, who runs the group and is the founder of Speakers, Authors, and Coaches, as well as a couple other different groups. And I was directed to a podcast event to become a guest. I'd never been a guest in a podcast. I was kind of letting fear grip me, even though I know it stands for Face Everything and Rise. I had to remind myself. And I decided to join this podcasting event where you are a podcasting guest. They teach you how to be a guest. And Eric Cabral and Josh Carey are the founders of On Air Brands and that podcast weekend. And they do these quite often. And that podcast event gave me courage. I literally had my first podcast I was ever on. There was 3 of them I was recorded on. And then I was given a bonus 2 after the fact. And excuse me, from that point, I connected to many more people, still developing the Give a Heck brand. What was I going to do with it? Getting some support from the 365 Driven Society group that I had joined. That was where the challenge had started. And as well, starting to attend Speakers, Authors, and Coaches online calls to get, direction and purpose. Where did I want to go with this brand? I knew I didn't want to stop doing financial planning and lifestyle planning, but I wanted to get more into coaching. I was now intrigued about getting my own podcast. And as well, I ended up months later intrigued about writing my own book. And we'll talk about that as well as I proceed forward through what's gone on in the last year and, the Give a Heck brand and where it's developed to. And the end result is one of the biggest things that happened was this podcast, and still is this podcast, because it gives me the opportunity to touch people around the globe. The last time I checked, this podcast is listened to now in 22 different countries, and that is amazing. And it is listened to, it's in the top 10% right now of all podcasts on the planet, according to listennotes.com. And that is pretty amazing that I'm touching other people's lives through technology, through this podcast platform, bringing them exciting, vibrant, give a heck people that have totally pivoted and changed their lives and are giving out information to help others collapse timeframes and do the same thing. So back up to the podcast weekend, got to be a guest on 3 during that day. And then one of the people that was outside of that 3 was a lady by the name of Patty Catter. She has a podcast that, roughly approximately gets 2.4 million downloads an episode. And she is in the top elite of like 0.5% podcasts in the world. And she has a podcast called Wake Up with Patty Catter. Well, I happened to be a guest on her show, and then I was blessed and highly favored to have her on as a guest in my first season as well. We had conversations, and she is such a kind person. She says, well, why are you waiting to do your podcast? You said you're interested. And I made some excuses, and she basically took them away from me. Said, here, talk to this person. This is what you need to do. And then over the next, I'd say 30, 45 days, I'd communicate with her thoughts and what she thought was, a good way to go. And literally the beginning of November of 2020, this week right here, I launched the Give a Heck podcast. And to tie into the brand of, helping people live life on purpose, not by accident. Back up a month prior to that launch of the podcast, I went to a 365 Driven Society event, the first of its type in Utah. And it was absolutely amazing at Zion National Park. Most invigorating, amazing conference event, connection to speakers that I had ever been to. Very limited numbers. The next one is coming up here in a couple of weeks. I'd highly suggest you check it out. There might be a couple of spaces left. It's in Tucson, Arizona. But anyway, that event, I met some great people, more connections, because the speakers at these events hang out with us. They break bread with us. It's not like a typical conference that you go to where the speakers hide in the green room. They run off the stage. You're lucky if 5 people get a photo op with them or even get to discuss anything really in depth that's meaningful. At this event and every event that Tony has, absolutely it happens. His wife, Lisa, helps him design and put the events together, and she's amazing at doing that. So the two of them together put on the best events I've been to in my life. And I've been to more than 150 plus conferences in the last 30 years of my life. So I met somebody there by the name of Mike Fallett. Mike literally sat down stood up, I guess, and talked to us about his book creation services. And I always wanted to write a book. I had been told for years that I'd be fantastic at writing and that I needed to write a book. Originally, though, it was around children's books because I made up stories for my kids. I'm a single dad of 5 kids, for those that don't know. And I literally would make up stories, tuck them into bed, say prayers with them. And then sometimes they didn't want to read out of a book. They just wanted to make up stories. So I would. But that's for another day. I'm going to eventually do that. But what I ended up doing was Mike, his service is amazing. We connected. We went through a process. which I won't get into the details, but helped me get a book put together. And then I spent the next few months working on that template and adjusting it and adding it and getting advice from people, advice on book covers, advice on colors, advice on information. It was just amazing. So shout out to Mike, shout out to Tony, two of the biggest influences in 2020 as well. Don't want to forget Patty Catter, huge influence on me. We're still really close. And Jake Ballantyne of Speakers, Authors, and Coaches. So we've got, just to recap, Tony Watley of 365 Driven, Mike Follett of Dream Starters Publishing, sorry, Mike, and Patty Catter of Wake Up with Patty Catter podcast. And she as well has a coaching business and a podcast development company. And lastly, Jake Ballantyne of Speakers, Authors, and Coaches. Again, he has other companies that help people out, level up, and climb. So those four people were probably the most influential people for me in 2020, going right into 2021 where we're at. And literally, the podcast launched, the book I wrote, and that launched in March of this year in 2021. It became an Amazon bestseller in literally less than a few hours in 4 different categories, which still blows me away that people would be interested in reading a story that's titled Give a Heck, How to Live Life on Purpose, Not by Accident. At least I was shocked. Now I'm not, because it has made such a difference in people's lives. So much so that in the last couple months, I have a 17-year-old fan. Her dad is a friend and a fan of the Give a Heck brand. The daughter was given the book months ago, and she's 17 in high school. She read the book, blown away by it, started following me and watching my podcast. And she wrote a school article about 2 books that had influenced her the most in her life at that point. And one of them was my book. It touched her. It changed the way she thought. And I've had case after case of people that have reached out to me about the book and how it has helped them level up their mindset and give them a sense of purpose, that they can truly give a heck and start climbing again in life, or continue the climb if they're starting to feel like they're stalling. So that was just one of many things that has happened. I get reached out to about the guests I have on my podcast and my vlogs. On a weekly basis, somebody comments or reaches out to me privately in regards to that. So in the last year, this podcast journey, again, as a recap, has taught me to be a better listener. It's taught me to tap into more of my empathetic nature, because I am considered, I didn't realize it, but in the last 2 years, I've really dialed into the fact that I am an empath. And it can be a curse and a blessing. I will let you know that. But in more times and more cases than not, it has been a blessing in my life. But I've learned to tap into the strengths that I've possessed for a long, long time, continue to develop great positive connections. And literally, again, the podcast taught me to be a better listener. It's allowed me to connect to 56 people prior to this, right? To interview them and, learn from them, because I think the person that benefits sometimes the most from my podcast is myself, because I get to listen to these great people, ask them questions, find out where they were at in their life. I focus on their origin and work it all the way up to where they are today in their lives. And I learn an absolute ton of good information and get to relay that out into the internet, out into, for podcasting, for people can watch it on YouTube. And it's made a huge difference in my life. And I'm so grateful to God. And for those that aren't God-fearing and you believe something different, that's fine. But I personally, as a God-fearing Christian, I'm grateful to God for doing things for me and helping bring people into my life that have helped me level up tremendously since March of 2020, guided me to create this Give a Heck brand that is changing people's lives. And from the vlog to the books, book singular, eventually be plural, and this podcast. So I appreciate you being along for the journey. Those of you that have been listening since day one, or maybe this is the first time you're listening to my podcast, check out the rest. You can go to giveaheck.com/podcast, and you can find all my podcasts. You can also check it out, Give a Heck, on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, the list go on. You can find me. And if you want to, read the book and get it for free, go to dwightheck.com/giveaheck. And you can pay the shipping and handling and get the book for free. I will sign it for you, ship it out to you, no matter where you are in the world. Again, you simply pay the shipping and handling, and you can tap into my origin and how I got to where I am today. Again, the book only came out in March. Not a difficult read at all, 150 pages. So I appreciate you listening, all of you, and I appreciate your support. I appreciate too, if you like this podcast or you like my podcast, you've been listening already, please subscribe to it. Give me a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast you listen to whatever podcast service. I'd really appreciate it, because the more that people rank and review this podcast, the more it gets out to listeners. And if you really, truly find value, share it with somebody else. I would truly appreciate it, because my whole goal in life is to help everybody learn it's never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.